Welcome back, everybody. So opposition spokesman on education, Senator Damian Crawford, is proposing that the government increase the GCT, general consumption tax, by 1 percentage point and use the additional revenue to provide additional funds for the education sector. He joins us now via Zoom from the Global Diaspora Conference happening in Montego Bay. Good morning, Senator. Good to see you. How are you?
Good morning.
Hi,
how are you guys
morning.
doing?
Very well,
Morning, Talia. How are you doing?
I'm good.
How goes the conference? Good?
Yeah, excellent. I have to give kudos to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the minister and our junior minister. Yesterday was an excellent show of diversity of information, and it's well attended. About 1,200 persons have registered, and that is an excellent showing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
One thing you're going to do is give kudos when kudos are due. You're coming under, I wouldn't say fire, a lot of public debate around the sentiments you have expressed. I'm going to ask you first, because with you, you know, the math teacher is at the core, the tutor is at the core, the math is always mathing. So give me explain for the layman what it is that you are suggesting with this proposal that you've made.
Well, first of all, one of the foundations of the disagreement and misunderstanding is that the way it's carried in the media, we are running the anchor leg before we run the first leg. So don't understand how we passed the finishing line before we went to the starting line. It is that we're saying we should fund education. If we agree that we should fund education, then we have to see where we find the money, the additional money to fund education. So the first area of agreement is that the education sector needs additional funding. What is this current situation? Is that of the budget that the government puts to education, 161 billion, which is no chicken feed, but approximately 80% is for salaries and utilities. So therefore, there's nothing really left within the budget to fund education appropriately. So much so that the schools are receiving 17,000 Jamaican dollars per child at the high school level and 11,000 Jamaican dollars per child at the primary school level. This is for the year. Now, if you do that simple mathematics, it would mean in a 10-month school year, that is $1,700 per month. And if they are doing 20 days, you will see that that is about $85 per day. So the truth is that that is incapable of funding education. What has been the result? In 2021, 36,000 11th graders were registered or enrolled in 11th grade. Only 6,700 got 5 subjects, including math and English, which is equivalent to a GED. So you're saying in the United States, they would not be enraged by 17% of the students in a GED. The World Bank says that the Jamaican student is approximately 53% of their full potential had they gotten proper education and good health care. And additionally, a child who pays 11 years of bus fare, 11 years of lunch money, 11 years of uniform is getting effectively 7 years of education.
Gotcha.
So when we look at that, we say that we need additionally about $25 billion more to appropriately and properly fund the education system.
Well, Senator, I love that you actually broke it down for us in terms of the numbers and the statistics, that number of persons can actually understand where your perspective is coming from. But instead of saying taxes, you know, could not there be a proposal to reallocate funds from some of the ministries that do exceedingly well, for example, tourism, to fund the sector?
Well, the performance of a ministry isn't the basis of its funding. So I would have to then look at the Ministry of Tourism to see, for example, what it is advertisement budget, removing the advertisement budget that carries the hotels in Jamaica really compete against other hotels in Jamaica, because the ministry goes out and make Jamaica compete against other places in the world. So the person coming to Jamaica might have chosen Jamaica before they chose Sandals or Rio, or because Jamaica is out there competing for attention, etc. So because the ministry is performing doesn't indicate that that ministry have excess funding or that program have excess funding. What we do know, however, is that there's 3 compartments of the budget, 2 of which every government, regardless of which political party, must continue to pay. The first part is the debt, and the second part is the salaries. No matter who is in government, they would have to pay that. There's a third part that is up to government's discretion. So yes, you are correct that a better proposal might have been to move towards the discretional component to prioritize education within the discretional component. Okay. So while it is that the government gives 163 billion, the vast majority of that would be in the non-discretional component, meaning in the salaries and the utilities component. And so therefore, we should be asking for a greater share of that part that the government have its decision making over.
I think that's a part of the challenge is that we're leaving this to discretional component because this is not a discretional matter. And I think to an earlier point you made, I think there is significant agreement around the fact that we need to change things in the sector. The area of what you call it now, non-agreement has been the whole. And we've been talking about this for so long. You are saying GCT, this percentage point increases away, but people are saying, you know, how can you be trying to add more on the back of Jamaicans who are already carrying so much? The government is saying we've not, you know, no net new taxes for the last 8 years. What are you doing? Even your own party, Senator, which I find to be so interesting, has come out. Are they distancing themselves or are they saying this is not a party position? How do you reconcile that?
Well, again, it is foolish of anyone, including myself, to speak to taxes within an election year. So there are going to be certain conversations around that. But when people ask what I would be willing to give, I'd be willing to give anything for education, if education is to be improved.
Okay. You made that clear.
I'm looking in the newspaper where they said 10 billion more for security. If we don't provide a meal per day for children in school, for which the research is saying 33% of Jamaican children arrive at school hungry, that's 140,000 children approximately, leave them yard without food, making it incapable for them to learn. So therefore, 10 billion per is now being additionally spent in the Ministry of Security. However, some people may frown on 25 billion to be spent. So if we don't spend it on children eating in school, we'll spend it on prisoners eating in prison.
Yes.
And that is 3 meals per day versus the 1 meal per day that I'm calling for. If we don't increase the boarding facilities within our schools, we will increase the boarding facilities in our prison. Because if we can't separate some of our children from the community, if we can't reduce what is called chronic absenteeism up to 21 days because of affordability, because of distance from school and cost of travel, we're going to be in a problem. If we can't do additional remedial effort to prevent 80% of some of our high schools reading below the pre-primary level, which means basic school level, we're going to pass the CXC if you're reading at basic school level. That's an impossibility. So the realities that we face suggest that it must be found.
Yes.
And when the conversation has started, some persons have suggested that the education tax should be reserved for non-salary education funding, which is about 50 billion. So the government should find the salary from the consolidated fund and the utilities from the consolidated fund, and then education programs can be funded by the education tax.
Tali,
if I can just give you one example of the lack of funding. Recently, the ministry said about e-books. And the teachers aren't using the e-books. There's no way to use an e-book which is on the computer in classes if the students don't have a computer. So therefore, you can't turn to page 27 in your handmill. So there must be that provision.
No, we're fully. Talia had a question. Go ahead, Talia.
I think we're aligned. We understand what you're saying, Senator. But do you then think that some of these resources should be poured into education should come from outside of the country? And persons outside of the country? Well,
that would be based on voluntarism. And you can't base the base level of education on voluntarism. So you can then seek to achieve best case by having additional funding come from the diaspora, etc.
And they have been helping. It's important to know.
And they have been helping a lot. But the government should ensure that the minimal education, average acceptable education is funded directly by the government. The alumni associations and the diaspora and the business sector will then now see to move it from the lowest acceptable to a better space. But I can't depend on the voluntarism of individuals each year to fund the base level education that we need.
So I guess what we need to find is, I'm going to say the right way. I don't know that there's any one right way because this is a multi-stakeholder issue. that's going to take a multi-stakeholder approach, from the discretionary to the voluntary to the local to the international. I'm just wondering if there's another way, and maybe GCT is one way, or maybe it's not, but I'm just looking at the feedback, not only from the current administration, but from, members within your party to state, our party understands that the burden that increased taxation would impose on our citizens, especially at a time when the cost of living has been increasingly intolerably, and mere survival is a daily struggle for most Jamaicans. So that's saying, it's a blight on the administration as to keeping costs and wages livable, but it's also saying that, they don't really agree with your statement, right? Am I right? Is that a fair assessment?
That is fine too, because the allows for that type of debate. What is the mistake here is that it's been happening in the public space. We should have really had that debate. But I was speaking to some principals. The Minister of Education was there. It would have been inappropriate of me to say, oh, we can save by cutting thievery, or we can save by cutting wastage, or because in the space of the minister, the minister is the higher authority and should be respected for her position. So there will be some space for cutting wastage, but I still believe that there will still be a need for additional funding, and that additional funding can just be by relocating some of the activities that we are prioritizing now to prioritize education. Okay. Because, as I said, security will cost us in the future if education isn't paid for now.
That's right. Very well, two are mutually inextricable, actually.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yes, always appreciate your views. We know you're very passionate about this, Senator, and so
thank you
for your continued advocacy. Have a great day too.
Yes, enjoy.
Yes, and I will say hi to the diaspora for you from Smile
please,
Jamaica.
Yes, please, our people. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Opposition spokesman on education, Senator Damian Crawford.
Coming up next, what is the bystander effect, and is it doing more harm than good? We're back with that after this.